India's ties with one key country have been a major disappointment. This nation commands over 1 million troops and is one of the Middle East's most powerful countries. That country is Iran. But as one Indian ambassador puts it, this relationship promises a lot and delivers almost nothing on the ground. To understand what's going on, let's start with the basics. Why is India even interested in Iran? First, we've got oil. India imports over 80% of its oil needs from abroad to keep its economy going. For decades, Iran has been a key supplier of oil to India. For example, in 2018 to 2019, India imported around 23.5 billion tons of Iranian oil. The second reason is geography. Iran and India are located close to Pakistan and Afghanistan, and that means that both countries have similar concerns about terrorism and political stabilities in the two countries. Third, there's economics. For the longest time, India has wanted to use Iran to sell things to Central Asia, which India is geographically cut off from. For that reason, India has been helping develop Chabahar port in southeastern Iran as a conduit for Indian goods to make it to Central Asia. While all of this sounds great, there's no denying that India's partnership with Iran, which is a major power in the Middle East, has been pretty disappointing. But why is that? According to Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed, the bottom line is that India has subordinated its ties with Iran to other considerations, overwhelmingly American considerations. But what does he mean by that? To understand that, we have to go back to 2003, when President Khatami of Iran visited India. It was a fairly successful visit, and both countries agreed to develop Chabahar port to boost trade. They announced more defense cooperation and also investments in Iran's energy sector. There was a lot of hope and hype surrounding the India-Iran relationship, and then the whole thing came crashing down. The reason was Iran's nuclear weapons program, which began in the late 1990s. Now, this program caught the attention of the West, and America in particular, which wanted to stop the proliferation of nuclear weapons. In 2004, Iran struck a deal to dial down its nuclear activity and reduce tensions with the West. But in 2005, Western powers broke off talks as Iran was found guilty of making uranium in violation of nuclear agreements. America and the United Nations Security Council began slapping sanctions on Iran. Although it had just laid out plans to deepen ties with Iran, India was also negotiating the historic civil nuclear deal with America at the same time. US officials warned India that if it did not cooperate with the US policy on Iran, then the civil nuclear agreement could be rejected by American politicians. Faced with the choice between Iran and America, India chose America. As India-US ties began to take off, India was unwilling to risk all of this to back Iran. Now, it's important to be clear that this was a choice that was essentially forced on India. It was Iran that chose to confront the West over its nuclear weapons program. So, after this, everything began to fall apart. India voted against Iran at the International Atomic Energy Agency, plans to develop Chabahar port fell through, and defense cooperation stalled. The only thing which still worked in the relationship was energy, since India was importing millions of tons of crude oil from Iran. However, in 2013, India decided to cut imports from Iran by 15% every year after pressure from the United States. Things were looking pretty grim for the bilateral relationship. However, everything changed in 2015 when Iran signed a nuclear deal with the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, as well as the European Union. Iran agreed to limit its nuclear program in exchange for the removal of some sanctions on its economy. With Iran and the West now on better terms, New Delhi and Tehran could start talking to each other again. In 2016, the leaders of India and Iran met. Both countries agreed to reset their relationship and announced some pretty massive projects. For example, India agreed to take on the $1.6 billion rail project, which would connect India and Iran to Afghanistan. But disaster struck once again when Donald Trump pulled America out of the 2015 nuclear deal. Before you could blink, Trump slapped sanctions on Iran again, and India was supposed to cut off oil imports from Iran totally. Everything else in the relationship suffered because of American sanctions. For example, in 2021, India was dropped from developing the $1.6 billion Zahedan rail project, which we mentioned earlier, given delays caused by sanctions. Today, the two countries still talk to each other about terrorism, Afghanistan, and a couple of other issues. But the truth is that the India-Iran partnership has been a disappointment, and both countries know it.